I'm going to show you how to find and make not only stone dust, but also whetstones in V Rising. If you might have noticed, the game will have you get to a point where you'll kind of need those materials, and you go to a grinder. You make a grinder in order to make stone dust, and you'll need stone dust in order to make a whetstone. But the problem is that in order to make this bench, this grinder, you need the whetstones, and there's no way to get the whetstones unless you already have the grinder, so you're kind of stuck in that weird scenario like that. Well, the way that's going to work is that these zones that you find that have like wolves or skeletons or bandits or whatever, when you mouse over these on the map as you're exploring, it'll tell you what items you'll find at these. And for example, here's a bandit encampment that'll find a whetstone. So I'm going to go to one of those and show you what I mean. So now I am near one of the places that you need to go to find either whetstones or stone dust so that you can make the grinder. This is a bandit armory. It's right here on the map. Here's the whole map if you zoom out. There's the bandit armory. You can find whetstone and stone dust here, or you could go over to the bandit encampment here to find whetstone. And obviously there's going to be other zones in the Farbane woods that you'll be able to find them. None of these though, but you can see what's in each one obviously when you mouse over it, but there will be other ones. But either way, you go to the bandit armory, and once you are at the bandit armory, there are enemies that will drop these items. You may get lucky and find them inside of crates and things like that. So I've killed some enemies. These ranger ones are the ones that will often drop whetstones. They're level 26 or so. When you kill them, they don't always drop whetstones, but they frequently drop whetstones. I killed some other, level 25 or 26 enemy. It drops stone dust, as well as other miscellaneous items that may or may not interest you. And so you can see from a place like this, that's how you can get whetstones. That's how you can get stone dust in order to make whetstones, so that you can build your grinder, so that then you can just make the stone dust and whetstones from normal stone instead of farming whetstones and stone dust. So after farming 4 whetstones or stone dust, depending on something we'll get to in a second, you'll then be able to make this grinder, assuming you also have the other materials, planks, which are made at the sawmill using lumber, and then copper ingots, which are made at the furnace using copper, which copper is found in stones like the one over here, but they'll be like copper color. You'll find them in the world, and you can get copper, take them there, turn them to copper ingots. Then you get all the mats, you can make a grinder. You'll open up the grinder, and it'll have this recipe where you put stone in, and it'll give you a stone brick and stone dust. And then once you have that set up, then you can actually just make the whetstones, because you'll need copper ingots and stone dust to make whetstone. So you can just basically turn stone and copper into whetstones then. Although, in order to actually craft these, you will need this recipe. It says unknown recipe. Now, in order to get recipes, or at least these recipes, you go to the blood altar, and these first enemies will give you structures and recipes. And from these, some of these ones, you'll be able to get what you need. So if you go down to Grayson the Armorer, he's the one who has the recipe for the whetstone. So you would track his blood, and then after you're tracking his blood, it'll randomly show this blood trail. Every so often it procs that, as you'll probably know at this point in the game, and you just slowly find your way to him, and you take him out and feed on him or whatever, and then you'll come back and whatever, and you have the whetstone recipe. Then from that point on, the rest of your game, the rest of your playthrough with the specific character you're using, you will be able to just craft the whetstones whenever you want to make whatever you would want to make from the whetstones. So hopefully that helps you out about how to not only make the whetstones and stone dust, but where to find the initial ones in order to get started. And also, again, if you get the stone dust but not the whetstones and you want to make the grinder, then you could just go fight that armor guy. Then you'd be able to just make the whetstones, but I mean, you might as well just farm the whetstones too. It's like, it doesn't really make sense to skip the whetstones, get stone dust only, and then rest, But hopefully it helps. Now you know how to find and craft stone dust and whetstones in V Rising.